This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to spend your crypto in Latin America. Purchase gift cards or mobile refills from more than 3,500 brands in 186 countries instantly, safely, and privately. Visit bitrefill.com for more information. Welcome back to another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Since 2014, My Latin Life has been your trusted guide to traveling and living in Latin America. My guest today is Ben Moore. He's an American who runs an online marketing agency called Elevate. He knows, a fair amount of the other guys. He knows Jake. He knows some other guys. I've met Ben personally and spent a fair amount of time hanging out with him in Mazatlan, Mexico. And happy to finally get him on a podcast. So Ben, welcome.
What's up, man? Excited to be on. Excited to chat and talk about some of this LatAm lifestyle stuff.
Have you been dreaming of this moment?
Oh man, I've just been thinking about when could I get on the podcast finally for years. But that is actually a good point, like a good thing to touch on, this podcast and your Twitter, as well as Jake's, were like some of the main reasons that I originally came to Latin America. So definitely a big part of it.
Good. And I think I want to use this podcast to basically inspire other younger guys and give them an idea of what's possible. Because you're young, dude. You're like 23, younger?
21.
You're 21. You're 21.
Yeah,
wow, incredible.
Yeah, turned 21 in Puerto Vallarta actually, and that was a wild time.
Good stuff. So, younger guy decided to take a bit of a different path. Instead of getting an average office job, decided to build an online marketing agency, got a couple of clients, and then moved to Latin America, has spent time in a couple different places in Mexico, Colombia, Peru, and just, basically taking a different life path than the one, the one that they tell you you're supposed to take. And so very interesting. I wish I got started when I was, 19, 20, 21 years old. Cause wow, I mean, what better thing to do than the experiences that you've had. So I guess maybe to kick things off, Ben, what made you come to Latin America? Tell us a little bit more of your story.
Yeah. So when I was, I moved to Latin America like a year and a half ago now. And I was 20 at the time, and the agency had grown a fair bit, and I had just been basically, I'm from Ohio, from Cincinnati, and in Ohio, it's a very repetitive place in the States. Like there's not a ton of exciting stuff. It's the Midwest. And so, I was there just working on the business, work, trying to grow it, because I just committed to myself like, hey, I'm not leaving I'm not leaving this basement, because that's where I was at the time. I was in my parents' basement, just like grinding out on the business. And I was like, I'm not leaving here until I can go and like live a life of freedom that I want to live. So, basically I got up to, I hit that, what everyone talks about, that 10K a month mark with the business. And I was kind of just looking like, okay, so now what do I want to do with my life? And I had become super socially, I guess, I don't know if it's good for the podcast, but like socially autistic at this point, where I couldn't look people in the face. I couldn't look people in the eyes. And so I wanted to just open myself up to meeting new people, and also kind of find an adventure within my life. Like when I was younger, I kind of wrote to myself, like, the goal of my life is to live the great, like the most maximalistic experience possible. Like I always say, like, experience maxing. And so I was kind of like, what's the first step in order to do that? And so, looking at your page a lot when I was around there, I was actually between moving to going to Mexico or going to Bali, and going to like Southeast Asia, because there's kind of like two paths. I feel like when you first start to look at like going into moving as a digital, like doing the whole digital nomad thing, there's like the Southeast Asia bros, kind of shit, and then there's the Latin America thing. And so, luckily, thank God, I chose Latin America, and I moved to Playa del Carmen originally.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's, and I guess just to make this relatable for people, maybe they want to visualize what you look like. You're actually like super jacked. So there's no reason
Yeah.
that you should be socially awkward. You're bigger
Right.
than me, and you got
Right.
the fade, and you got the
Yeah.
tight black t-shirt. Like you kind of got the look down. So
Yeah.
there's, but I guess maybe just because the pandemic, that kind of
Right.
like stunted your age 18, early adulthood, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, man. After high school, I was like kind of like I was really just super non confident. I was actually bodybuilding competitively for a bit of time there, and I was doing Muay Thai as well. And I was super just unconfident in myself because, and I don't know if that's a word, but because I felt like I had nothing really going for me outside of that. Like, all my friends, I watched them go off to college, and I just always knew um, that I really hated like school. And that's not to say like it's bad, but for me, it just wasn't working at all. And so I just knew I had to figure something else out, alternative to what people were doing. And I needed to live some type of life where I had control over what I was doing. So I was delivering food for a while there, and I was just super, that fed into the kind of non-confidence, because I would go see my friends at some fraternity party, and everyone's like, oh, where do you go to school, or what are you studying? I'm like, well, I deliver food. And that's kind of my job. Like I think I delivered,
Wow.
yeah, I think I
Most
delivered
people wouldn't be able to handle that.
yeah, I mean, it was definitely and that's what kind of like put me deep into a shell, where I was like, I don't really want to leave until I have something that I'm proud of myself for, because I felt like at that point I was just, there's nothing for me to be proud of myself for. I didn't see much value within what I was doing with my life. And I mean, I racked up like 4,000 deliveries on Uber Eats and DoorDash at that point. So dude, I was ripping pretty hard. But yeah.
That's incredible. Wow.
Yeah.
And did you like get into college? Did you go a semester and drop out, or you're just like screw it, and like did you kind of work out a deal with your parents? Look, I'm just gonna grind, or how did that happen?
No, yeah. After high school, I actually moved out to Seattle, Washington, to try to train to play professional baseball.
Oh yeah.
And I was training at like it's one of the top pro facilities in the world. Actually, it's called Driveline. Like a ton of really big time. I was training alongside a ton of really big time MLB players every single day, and so I was just out there training. And I trained there for 8 months, and I was just working really hard, and I had this dream of playing professional baseball. But at some point, aided by some substances, let's just say that I kind of came to, after just months and months of grinding it out, I came to a realization that, you know, I didn't really want to be a pro baseball player, and I also wasn't good enough. Like straight up, I had to take an objective, like come into Jesus moment and see that I wasn't good enough. And I, I just decided to stop, because I didn't. I just was being a baseball player because I didn't know what else to do with my life. And I think that's really important for anyone, is like, looking at the things that you spend so much of your time on, and seeing, am I doing this because I actually want to do this? Or am I doing this just because I feel like this is all I know and this is what I should do, with my life?
Hmm. Hmm.
It's like The Mask, right?
Hmm. And so the agency, how did
Yeah.
you get to 10K a month with that, or how did you know what to do? Because that sounds impossible for a
Right.
lot of people. The idea of, building a 10K a month business. That's a lot of
Right.
people have a limiting belief around that as well. Did you have mentors? Did you pay some guy to
Yeah.
do a fancy mentorship program? Did you figure it out yourself?
Yeah. So I was grinding on the agency. After I graduated high school in 2020, and then I hung up baseball by the early 2021. Um, and then I moved home, and I was just working on the agency and delivering food. And I didn't actually get my first client. Like I started working on the agency probably March of 2021, and I didn't get my first like actual success with it until February of 2022. So it was like a year of just absolutely failing and losing, for me, like 20 grand, which is when you don't have any other source of income. That's a lot because I didn't really have clients or anything like that. So I was paying a ton of mentors. I mean, I tried like 7 different business models. Like I was doing fitness coaching, I was doing, ad agencies. And so I was paying a ton of different people. And how it, finally got off the ground was just a culmination of all those experiences of kind of learning and failures and investing a lot of money and time, and finally culminated into one thing that I got some validation on, as far as like someone, we had success in doing work for someone for free, and then just leveraging that, that proof to other people. And that's kind of all an agency really is, as for making money online. If you're doing a service-based business, is getting some type of proof of concept that what you're doing can positively, affect someone else's business or your client's business, and then leveraging that into as many similar type of people as possible in the form of a case study, using email outreach, and just, it's a touch
Mm.
game, like reaching out to as many people as possible.
Mm. And so, what made
Yeah,
it finally start clicking in? If someone's listening to this and they're like, "I want a 10K agency," like how would you what would you recommend to them to kind of you know make it
get
happen
started.
faster? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that, you know try to, don't try to create the next Google. Like, that's pretty cliche advice, but try to find something where, people are already having some success with. So for me, that was like, originally it was just posting things on TikTok for like podcasts and YouTubers, and making clips and then posting them for them. And what happened is I created like a fan page for a few really big podcasts, and they blew up overnight, and I was able to leverage those pages into those podcasts and say, hey, we built this for you. Would you be interested in taking over ownership or us running it for them? And then eventually someone said yes. And from there, it's just like, I would say the biggest thing is reach out to as many people as possible. Like, outreach when you're early on in an agency, if you have like your offer, which can be any sort of thing. It could be video editing, it could be Facebook ads, it could be copywriting, it could be email marketing, whatever. The biggest thing that you can do is just reach out to as many prospects as possible. And if you do that, eventually, if you send 20,000 emails, eventually someone's going to get on a call with you, and then you just got to, work on your sales process and have something valuable to sell them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
And if
that's
anyone's wondering, Ben has not done anything with my podcast or clips. I asked him back when we were hanging out in Mexico, and he said
yeah.
he either said I don't work with friends or you can't afford me. One of the two.
Well, it's a mixture of both, because now where we're at, where we're at in the agency, we got a pretty big team. And it's like, we know the type of client that we mesh really well with, and we know the type of client that is like, not like, we know who's going to get a really big ROI out of our service and who's not. So there's certain people where they'll do better just from taking on just like a video editor who's maybe cheaper and maybe a lot more, like, able to focus on just your one case than us. But where my agency specifically comes in is when someone needs like a doctor that wants to, doesn't have a lot of time, has a ton of money, and wants to create content, where we can help him create all the content, and then we can edit all of it for him and post it and manage kind of his whole social system in general. That's where
Mhm.
our service kind of comes in to
Cool.
be effective.
Cool. Good. So
Yeah,
the agency started rolling, started getting
yeah,
good, and then your decision set changed where you were able to kind of maybe move on to the next step of life, move out of the basement. What
right,
kind of options were you considering? Did you consider moving to San Francisco or Miami
yeah.
or something? And then how did you end up choosing Latin America? I guess.
Yeah, yeah. So, like I was saying earlier, I was actually looking between like Bali and Mexico, Playa del Carmen specifically, for the first kind of like leap off place. Which I'm really glad I chose Playa, just because I do feel like Playa is still probably one of the best places for someone who their first time to go be like live in another country and be a digital nomad, especially in Latin America, is like a great spot for that, because there is still a lot of people that can speak English, and it's just like a slow cultural change. But you know looking at the guys that were in Miami and Dubai, a lot of kind of people in that Twitter space are. I just I didn't like the you know it's just kind of, I felt like it was just going further into the rat race of like, hey, who's going to get the highest agency revenue number next month. And that's not to say that's bad. Like, that's great if people want to do that, and growing the business is something I'm interested in, want to grow too. But guys always talk about like, oh, you need to be around people that are making more money than you so that you're motivated to make more money. And for me, I just always thought that was goofy, because I'm like, I don't need some external persons in comparison to motivate myself to grow my business. It's like, this is my business, and if I want to grow it, then I'm going to grow it. I'm not going to need, some other dude that makes a little bit more money than me to make me, go hard on this. It didn't make sense to me. So, and also it's just, I feel like I said earlier, my biggest goal in life was, how can I live the greatest life experience possible? How can I maximize my life experience? And
Mm-hmm.
I think in order to do that, you 100% have to be a part of different cultures, and like experience different ways of life and different people outside of yourself. And in addition, one of my favorite parts of Latin America with that is it's one of the greatest places, because you have access to really insane life experiences at like half of the price compared to if you want to do that in America, right? So like an example is, when I moved to Mazatlan, I had never surfed before, and surf classes in Mazatlan for 2 hours were like $20, and you get the surfboard with it. And then I was just messing around one day. I was like, okay, so what is a surf class cost in California for 1 hour? And I found like $170 for 1 hour of surf coaching with the surfboard included.
No
It's
way.
like, yeah. And so
Insane.
it's like, yeah, it's like, that's an experience where if I'm in California, that costs $170, but I'm here and it costs me $20 to do something and do it for longer. And so I can learn to surf at like a tenth of the price, of what it would be over there. And that's in general in Latin America. It's like, you have access to a lot of those different things. Like when I jumped off the side of a mountain in Medellin, and went paragliding, it was like $30, right? And that's like $200 thing to do something like that,
Yeah.
in the
Did
States.
you come in
So
Mazatlan when we went ATVing on the beach?
I didn't. I did not. I went ATVing a separate time, and I didn't
Yeah.
go with. I remember when you guys went, but I didn't go that day. But I have been ATVing on the beach, and that's like an amazing experience. Like, I absolutely
Amazing
love doing
experience.
that.
And it was what?
So fun.
35 bucks?
Yeah, $35. I mean, it's like these kind of things. They're just. It's way. It's. I mean, I went horseback riding through the jungle of Colombia 2 months ago, 2.5 months ago in Parque Tayrona, and it was literally $10 to like ride a horse for 2 hours through the jungle. That's like absolutely insane. So there's
Hmm.
definitely just access to a lot of experiences that you just have to pay a whole lot more and are a whole lot more difficult to set up, because in Latin America, you walk up to the dude you go down to where the fishermen are at, and if you want to take a boat ride, you walk up to the dude who's got a boat next to him, and you just say, like, what's up, man? Like, can I take a boat ride? And he's like, okay, like $10. And it's like, okay, let's do it. Right. Whereas in the States, it's like, oh, you have to go and you have to go set this up online. You have to sign these papers and do all this. And it's like, I don't know.
Hmm.
I like the flow of it.
Hmm. Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I wanted to double down on just how you decided that you wanted to leave the United States as opposed to,
Right.
say, going to Miami or I don't know what a normal Ohio guy would do. I'm not sure if they're more attracted to the East Coast or West Coast or Texas or something, but how did you decide that you wanted to leave the States?
A normal Ohio guy would stay in Ohio. That's the truth of
Isn't
that.
Mark Cuban from Ohio? Didn't he?
Dude, I don't know. I'm actually not sure about that, but I'd be surprised if he was. But to leave the States, and you know, I just felt like I had never really left the country when I was growing up, at all. So I feel like, I would just like, I don't know if I know normal dudes like do this a lot, but I'm always the guy who's like looking at a map and just seeing like all these crazy places and cities I've never heard of and places like I've never seen. I'm like, man, that looks really cool to check out. um, so I was just looking at that, and also Latin America is in similar time zones, which is a big part of it. So you can still like work. You're not in Southeast Asia where it's completely different. And really just being on Twitter, like I got on Twitter when I was a lot younger, and kind of originally was in this weird like red pill, manosphere, like looking at that content when I was like 17. And luckily I got out of that kind of space, and over time um, came into like all different kind of niches. So within that, I found this whole all these random dudes on Twitter talking about Latin America, and like, oh, you can live in Latin America in a penthouse apartment and do amazing things for a quarter of the price that you could do it at in the US. And you can also meet amazing people, um, and just a whole alternative kind of lifestyle. And that really attracted me right away. And being from Ohio, like I said, um, I just had always seen everyone kind of do this similar path, and I was like, okay, what's really going to stir the pot? So going to Miami, it's like that's different, but I feel like that's still similar. It's still very similar. But how can I really stir my life pot up and just put myself in, on Mars essentially?
It's awesome. I like that.
Yeah, yeah, man.
So you stirred the pot. You started with Playa del Carmen. You're
Yeah.
saying you'd recommend Playa del Carmen to any kind of beginner digital nomad looking for a good first spot to land?
Yeah, I would say especially if you're not super confident in your Spanish, going to Playa is a good place. Just because one thing for me was, like I said, never been out of the country, and there's a ton of European people, like French people, and I met one of my best buddies, and he's from Norway, and now we're lifelong friends. And so I was just meeting a lot of people, and also you know being seeing some of that Mexican culture. That's you can go and Playa. It's so weird because there's like the Fifth Avenue, right, where everything's just tourist kind of stuff. But then if you go like uh, whatever to 30th Avenue, which is like 25. It sounds a lot further than it is, but it's just like a few blocks up. It's completely different world. And so you can kind of have access to both of those experiences in a really close place. And it's also a super walkable kind of town, which I highly suggest. Like being somewhere that's walkable. That's my least favorite part of Mazatlan is it's not the most walkable place overall, but Playa itself is super walkable. People are friendly. A lot of people are kind of doing the digital nomad thing, which is comforting when you see other people working online, because most places in Latin America, I feel like still is you're not going to see a lot of people working online. It's like um, cafes will have music blaring at 100 volume in the cafe, which is one of my I hate that, but because, like, dude, I mean, in Mexico, you go into a cafe and they'll have like two megabyte per second download speed or something, and the music will be going crazy hard. I'm like, come on, like this is insane. But in Playa, there's definitely still that work environment of you can go into any cafe and there's 20 people working on something at any time, which is really interesting.
Yeah, there's kind of an interesting paradox that I want to try to make the connection to, which is that, like, at least early in your journey, you want to be surrounded by other digital nomads and expats just to kind of show you that it's possible and kind of
Right.
see how other people are managing the lifestyle. But you had kind of alluded to how you don't need to be around other agency guys or other people in your specific niche to motivate you to, grow your business. So it's kind of not like a catch 22, but I don't know. Like, how would you square those two things?
Yeah. I think that being around agency guys, it's like one of my least favorite things, and as everyone's always talking about, like, oh, you're caught up in, like, he's stuck in the matrix, and calling people NPCs, and even some guy on Twitter has something that says like, stop being poor or something, and I just think it's such a small experience to live, where it's like these guys think that they're outside of some matrix because they're making a ton of money and live in their big nice apartment in Miami or something, but really they're just as stuck in the matrix still, because they are so limited in their experience, and they cut off half the population as just being poor people, in that they're above some type of population because they make more money than them. And so I think that when people are around, a lot of times, younger guys, and I'm not saying that I know everything here, but younger guys, a lot of times they go to Miami, and then they just get caught up in this same kind of like circle of, oh, getting this revenue, doing this, like it's the same thing that everyone is in. And to me, that's just not attractive to be a part of. It's essentially the matrix, just on a different kind of matrix. It's like the matrix of who's going to get the higher revenue this month, and who's going to get the cooler Twitter post or some bullshit. And that's, I don't know if we're allowed to swear on here, but that's just not
PG
not
13.
not what I want. Okay, cool. Yeah. That's just not what I wanted to be a part of. Is a circle jerk.
Gotcha. Hey, PG
Yeah.
13. No, I'm joking.
Yeah. Dude,
No,
that.
I honestly, I do think Playa. I agree with you. I think Playa probably is the best soft landing for people. I would argue it's a
Yeah.
better soft landing than Medellin in a lot
Yeah.
of ways. And I do think it is good to be around other digital nomads, especially people doing different things, just to kind of see like how almost everyone is making money online in a different way. Once
Yeah.
maybe you leave our little niche or our little bubble of Twitter. But like
Right.
when you're in Playa, some people are, yoga teachers, some people are online psychologists, some people have agencies, some people are programmers, some people are just living off savings. It's like a
Right.
little bit of everything. And honestly, there's almost no two people that do the same thing. And when people meet up there, the expats and stuff, they're really not talking about business. They're not talking about how much they made this month. They're just kind of
Right.
like enjoying life and I don't know,
Yeah.
just enjoying the moment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, moving to Playa changed my life for sure. Like I said, when before I moved there, I was super socially awkward, and moving there got me out of my shell so much, just because every single day you're around so many people, and you're kind of like, it's not a super big, like, it's a really small town actually. Playa is. It's everything kind of happens within like 38 streets. Um, and so you're forced to be around a lot of people, and it's actually hard to socially isolate yourself. And being a part of that just made me talk to more people, meet new people from, like, you know date girls from different countries, and kind of talk, just have conversations, and be a part of that. And that really helped me out and changed me and helped me grow. And then from being that, it gave me more confidence to be able to go somewhere. Like, the next place I went after Playa was Mazatlan. And it's a complete tailspin, kind of, because there's like no no gringos in Mazatlan. And I had no idea what to expect. And then, in Mazatlan, it's very Mexican, very like, we are Mazatlan. We are in Mazatlan, right? And we are in Sinaloa. And the first weekend I went out in Mazatlan, I was going out alone, and I walk out. I walk close to this bar, and then these guys hop out of a car and scream like, you know, gringo, vamos! Like, they just like adopted me into their group to go out for that night to the clubs, and it was an absolute amazing time. But if I would have came straight to Mazatlan, I would have never even tried to go out alone. But since I went to Playa first, and I had gotten more comfortable with myself and gotten more comfortable with like being around such different cultures, I was able to go out alone and kind of, explore and feel comfortable enough with myself, and feel like, Mexico's not some, in Latin America in general, is not some big bad place where you have to be worried all the time. It's like, you can live here, and I feel safer. Mazatlan's the safest place I felt like I've been in my time in Latin America.
This episode of the My Latin Life podcast is brought to you by Language Blend, the new best way to learn Spanish. Language Blend focuses on what you actually need to live and get by abroad. With daily one on one lessons, a dedicated texting partner, it's like living in a Spanish speaking country without ever leaving home. Go to languageblend.com for more information. Interesting. And
Yeah.
we'll have to come back to some Sinaloa stories a little bit later in the
Yeah.
podcast because I know you got some, but I don't want to disrupt the flow here. So
Yeah.
you start in Playa. We don't have to do like the whole thing chronologically, but
Yeah.
we'll touch on a couple things. But what is it like going from somewhere like a gringo hell or a
Yeah.
digital nomad hub, as I
Yeah.
should say? What's it like going from a digital nomad hub to a place like a Mazatlan where there's less gringos? Like what do people need to be aware of um, when
Yeah.
they're when like in terms of that transition?
I would say the first thing to be aware of is that you need to be able to make friends and go out of your way to make friends a lot more than when you're in a gringo hub like Playa is, because when you're there, it's just you're like I said, you're gonna make friends pretty easily just sitting at the cafe. But when you're here, and when you're in another place where there's just not many gringos, you gotta like go in and talk to people. And if someone looks interesting, just like you know getting involved with community type of activities. So like going out and surfing. At first it was just me and a coach, but then you meet other guys while you're out there. So I think that the biggest thing is making friends is a lot going to be a lot different of an experience. Doing experiences in general and like making yourself go do things is super important. Like when I first moved to Playa, I just didn't really. I just for a bit there, I just kind of did like the working, gym, and very occasional beach. And you can get really caught up in that when you first kind of move to Latin America. And so really big for me was like saying, okay, here's like listing out 20 cool things I want to do or see in a certain city, and then making sure that I go in like when I'm bored, or when I'm like if I'm getting too caught up in just the daily routine. I'm like, okay, I'm in this amazing place right now. I need to go do some of this. Like, I need to go see some things. I need to go explore something.
Right. Get a
Um,
little mind
so be,
ruin, something like that.
yeah, yeah, and that's actually one of my biggest regrets from my time in Playa is I was not intentional at all. Like, I didn't even see the Mayan. I didn't even see a Mayan ruin when I was in Playa. I didn't do much stuff, and it was because I was never intent. Like you have to be really intentional, no matter where you are in Latin America about or anywhere in the world about going and doing things because it's
Mm.
very easy to get caught up
Yeah,
in that
I
daily.
honestly think that's fine on your first location
Yeah,
because the goal isn't to 100% maximize the experience. The goal is to kind of set a sustainable
right,
routine and put your business in a place and just kind of get comfortable with Latin
right,
America. I remember
yeah,
when I first went to Playa, someone told me like, and we're going out and it's kind of hard to balance like the 3 a.m. nights on the on weeknights and stuff like that. And it's like,
hmm,
look, man, if you can make this work for the first 2 to 3 months, you can do this the rest of your life.
right,
And I was like,
yeah,
okay, that's fair. So first 2 or 3 months, I'm just gonna like I'll do a little living, but it's really more about just setting myself up to be able to do this forever.
right. Yeah, and I've seen people that they have to leave. Like when I was in Playa, I met two guys that actually had to leave just because it was too much. Like it was too much for them to be able to have be in such an amazing place. Like even when I brought my brother down, he couldn't separate vacation from like because when you're in a place like Playa or most places in Latin America, you're like it's kind of like a vacation. You feel like, but if you can't separate the vacation aspect from like the living aspect, then you're gonna have a lot of trouble because if you're just being on vacation all the time, it's a very hard lifestyle to live, and it gets really takes a toll on you for sure.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, even you saw it. You and I saw it together in Mazatlan, where you and I were
Right,
trying to work, and then we had a couple of my buddies from Canada and stuff like that, and
right,
they were in full vacation mode. They weren't even digital nomads, and
right,
so it's a tough balance where they want to go out on the weeknights, or they want to
right.
just interrupt you all day during the day and say like, hey, like who wants to go to the OXXO and all this stuff. It's like, man, I'm just working. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, like whatever it is. And so yeah, you definitely have to be disciplined.
Yep. I think that also when you're transitioning out, like outside of a gringo hub, outside of just being more intentional about making friends and doing activities, a lot of the time you have to um, kind of figure out what you how you know when you come to these places, they're not so like, hey, you go to these cafes, you go to these restaurants, you go to do these things. You have to figure out like what you actually enjoy about certain places, because a lot of the times you're not going to see the hot spots of what other gringos are going to do. So finding out where your spots are. Like in Mazatlan, I have my restaurant spots, my cafe spots, my gym, and I've kind of figured those out for myself. And the thing is, here, a lot of the times the places with the most reviews or that look the most good, you can't even trust, because it's like, those people are from a completely different background than you. So like for me, it's finding like my restaurant. So like every single day I go to this poke house and I get poke because I like to eat. Like I don't cook, but I like to eat healthy still. And so I had to like find that restaurant, but that's not a super popular restaurant in Mazatlan. Like that's not, people don't really, Mexicans aren't really, don't love the poke that much. They're very eating their own food, right? So I had to find that. I had to go out of my way to find that in certain cafes that have good Wi-Fi or things like that. Because like in a gringo hub, it's kind of you know you already know that the cafe you're going to go into most of the time is going to have good Wi-Fi because they have to. But when you're somewhere like this, it's not just a given that they're going to have certain aspects, certain items.
Hmm. Hmm.
Yeah,
I was honestly stunned that you went back to Mazatlan
yeah,
after, we were there for a couple months, and then you went to Peru. You went home to the States for a bit, and then I think you went to Peru, and then you went
yeah,
back to Mazatlan for, where are
yeah.
you now, by the way?
I'm in Mazatlan right
Oh,
now.
shit.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah, man. I'm here right now, looking out at the ocean. So actually, yeah, the first time I've been to Mazatlan. This is my third time here, my third stint in Mazatlan, and I really like it here. As far as like living here for like, I don't think I'll live anywhere for like a year straight for a long time, but Mazatlan feels like a home kind of spot for me, because it's like the thing. One thing that I would say about the people in Mazatlan, as far as like the locals you'll meet, I really enjoy a lot more than I enjoyed in Playa del Carmen, because
Hmm.
the thing about it is like with the tourist aspect in Mazatlan, there's an interesting statistic, like 2% of the tourism in Mazatlan is international versus 97% or 98% being domestic. And so with that comes that people aren't looking at you as just like getting a buck off of you when you're in Mazatlan, in places that aren't just reliant on gringo tourism in general. People aren't just looking at you as another dollar that like, oh, how can I get a maximum amount of money out of this guy? Whereas in Playa, when you walk down the main street, Fifth Avenue, I felt like always I was just like dollar signs, like, what restaurant can they try to like get me into, and what kind of like place. But people aren't like that here. And you can make real friendships. Like I have really real friendships. Like I've been invited to family carne asadas and shit here. And that's been so beautiful, and which is something I don't feel like is as possible in Playa, just because of the economy in general, what it's based on. And so
Hmm.
that's really a big part. That's something that I really enjoy about it here.
Yeah, I think it's good for digital nomads to have a place that they can go back to whenever they have maybe a lull in the schedule, or they just
Right.
want to grind for a bit. They want to go somewhere familiar. It's like,
Right.
this city you can go back to, get a 1 month Airbnb and
Yeah.
grind, and you know what area you want to stay in, and
Yeah.
it's less of a huge mental
Definitely.
logistical issue all the time.
Definitely. Yeah, I've been here 3 months now on this stint. So I was in Peru, and then I went to Colombia, and then I had an emergent family emergency kind of situation that I had to run home for, and so I was actually going to be in Colombia for like 2 more months, and unfortunately I had to go home, and I didn't feel like I don't know. For some reason, it feels like there's such a big difference between like Mexico and then going to South America. Even though flying to Medellin is like not, from Florida is like 3 hours, 4 hours or something. It's not a very bad flight at all, and it's like $100 typically. But for some reason, in my mind, there's like a block there of like, oh, if I go all the way to South America, then I don't want to, I want it to, there's just a difference there for me, and so.
It feels
Um,
further.
yeah, it feels for I don't know I don't know why, but it feels just and it also feels like um, a lot like I don't know, just different in general for me. I don't know what it is. So I just decided to come back to Mazatlan, and luckily, the weather's been in the summer. Man, what one thing I'll say is Mazatlan in the summer is extremely hot. Like every single day on the feels like for people that do Fahrenheit, it's like 107, 108 since I got here in July, which is
Mm.
like really brutal and really difficult to work with. But with that, it has been amazing time for surfing in Mazatlan. This is when the surf is the best, so that's been a really cool thing. But the heat has been a bit rough.
Are you getting blasted though with like sunburns?
Dude, I don't sunburn. I don't know. Like I don't. Like when I first come back, I always build up my kind of tolerance, and I haven't used sunscreen in literally like 6 years. I haven't used shampoo. I haven't used sunscreen in like 6 years. So I just kind of adopted being on that kind of Twitter thing. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I kind of adopted this whole not going super being somewhat natural. So I mean, I use coconut oil, and as long as you're not
Like for
trying to
shampoo or random? Yeah,
for shampoo.
random question, but I'm just curious what you use for shampoo, if not shampoo.
Yeah, I haven't used shampoo. I haven't really used any product in my hair for 5 years.
So you
Nothing.
use coconut oil in your hair?
Occasionally, yeah. Usually, if I'm like after I go in the ocean, I'll put some coconut oil in, something like that. But I haven't.
Just
Um,
au
I haven't
naturel.
used. Yeah, just like right now I actually have bleach blonde hair, funny enough, but um, like after bleaching it, I had to use a lot of coconut oil because it's like messes with the chemicals. But what I found was after I got off shampoo, and this is a wild topic to be switching to, but after I got off shampoo, like over 3 weeks of not using shampoo, your hair kind of rebalances like the natural oils within it, whereas shampoo and don't quote me on this science, but shampoo is like constantly keeping your hair at certain like chemical kind of
Uh-huh.
levels. So that's why it feels good. And so for the first 3 weeks after, 4 weeks after, it's very oily. But then after that, it just rebalances to be like what your hair is normally supposed to be. I mean, for millions or thousands of years, people didn't use shampoo, and then it was created one day.
Right. Yeah, no, I mean, I'm kind of getting to that age where my hair is starting to fall out a bit, so I'm kind of
Yeah,
like
dude.
I'm like genuinely curious.
Yeah, try some like rosemary oil, things like
I've
that.
heard
There's
that.
there's a
I've heard that.
yeah, there's a lot of good products out there.
I've heard that.
I think
Okay, so Mazatlan, good spot for digital
yeah.
nomads, good spot for living overall. The big hesitation a lot of people would have would be the narco situation. We
Yeah.
might end up talking about this for way too long, but it's pretty
Yeah.
entertaining. So,
Yeah.
give us your spiel on what's up with that.
Yeah. So as far as like I know you said good spot for digital nomads. I think that Mazatlan is a good spot for a certain type of digital nomad. Like if if you're a digital nomad that wants to be around other digital nomads, then this is like probably the worst spot for you, honestly, because you're not like you're going to go into a cafe and you're going to be working there alone a lot of times. And so there's that. But if you're a digital nomad who's like interested in making friends with people and interested in really diving deep and, something like surfing, anything like that, it's a good spot for you. As far as the narco situation goes, like I saw this on Twitter a few weeks ago, but I think one of the biggest things that people need to realize is these guys they do not want to, they're not interested in some random gringo Greg walking around like, they're not going to be like going after you and targeting you because you're a gringo. Like they don't really care about you. It's like thinking the CIA is after you. Like these guys, like they think the CIA is after them. It's like, no, dude, you have like 15,000 followers on Twitter. They're not trying to attack you. Like they're not worried about you, brother. So I think that's one of the biggest kind of mindset shifts that people can have. But that's my like basis for it. But as far as like in Mazatlan interacting with them, you're definitely like, if
You
you
will interact with them
you can a hundred
in the
percent.
like
I mean,
if you go out at night, you go to the club, like they're there.
yeah, yeah. I mean, you go in the bathroom. I mean, obviously there's things going on there, right? Um, they're there, and but
Avoid
the
all bathroom.
but they're not there. No one's there to specifically hurt you, and no one wants to hurt you. Is like the like I wouldn't be scared of it at all. Like I've walked around Mazatlan with minimal Spanish. Like I have decent Spanish now, but I had minimal Spanish when I first moved here, and I walked around here at 2, 3 in the morning completely alone in busy parts of the country, busy parts of the city, and never have had a problem. In Mazatlan, it's actually interesting too. Like one thing in Mexico is I have been like had problems with the police. I have had problems with the police a few times, and that's just like them trying to get money off of you. But I've never had that in Mazatlan at all whatsoever. So even the police here, they're like just a few weeks ago, like you're not allowed to walk on the beach in Mexico after a certain time, at least in Mazatlan. And I was walking on the beach, and
Hmm.
shirtless, just like going to read a book, and it's not legal here. And so the police came and they like stopped me, and it's actually a ticket if you walk on the beach late here at night alone, like that. And the police stopped me and they said like, hey man, like come up. And I came and we talked, and most times people would think, if you've been in Mexico for a bit, people would think they're going to try to get money off of you. They're going to say you have a ticket. The police literally just said, like, they were completely nice about it. They didn't give me a ticket. They didn't do anything. It was just like genuine, kind people that are like, hey man, that's, you're not supposed to do that. And I was like, okay. And I just walked off the beach, right? And so like when I was in Playa, I got shaken down. When I was in Mexico City, I got shaken down. But here, have never dealt with that, and that could lend itself into the narco situation itself, and that could be because of that, because it's like there is some sense of, you know,
Like an
you don't.
insular economy, I
Right,
guess.
yeah, that's what, and I don't, I can't go too into the specifics right with that, because obviously I'm not inside anything here that I know exactly, but that's what I felt in Puerto Vallarta too, where it was like, you don't mess with tourists, because these people are here, they're spending money, they're part of the business, and yeah, it's more of a general thing. It's not like a specific tourist doing a specific thing, but I've definitely had my interactions, specifically like in the casino. I've had my interactions and
Let's
seen
get
some
into
wild
it.
stuff.
Let's get into it. And
Yeah,
so,
yeah,
and before we do, sorry to buckle the buckle, like let's put a pin in that casino story. But I
yeah.
think everyone does know though that in Mexico, they're not specifically trying to mess with tourists because it messes up their image as a country, blah blah blah. But isn't it
Right,
still just a little weird how like in Sinaloa, like half of people, maybe 25-30% of people are involved in some way, or at least their allegiances kind of like lie in that direction a little bit. Isn't it just like a little weird that like everyone kind of knows someone, everyone has like crazy weird stories, you know what I'm talking about?
right. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, I was even talking to a girl about that. That it's always someone's friend, cousin, brothers. At some point, like you just kind of, it's a part of life, and you know someone. And one thing that in Mazatlan specifically is that it's actually a very like low crime kind of place, and I think that that's a big reason, because it's kind of like a very protected place. Like you're not messing with Mazatlan, and
Hmm.
so it causes a lot of, there's not much drama going on here on like a daily basis at all. Like when you're here in the winter, it's a ton of old retirees that are here from the states, and if there was a ton of drama going on, they would not be here for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, there's no
Yeah,
real answer, but it's like I was talking to Jake about like where like why not live in Mexico? Why not live in Mazatlan? Why do you live where you live? And he's
right.
like, "You know what? It would just kind of be weird to like raise a family there with like
Right.
and have
Yeah.
your neighbors like this and that." I know you don't necessarily
Mm,
have the answer to that, but I'm just
right.
wondering, as someone who's like spent more time in Mazatlan than me, kind of like how you've kind of come to terms with that.
Um, I think that obviously it's like what how are you living, right? Like I go out occasionally, but I'm not going out a ton, and I'm also like I don't I don't really do drugs in general or anything like that. So as far as me personally, I'm just not super in places where I would ever be like dealing with that. And I think that that's a big part is like if you want to go get into it, then you can have to deal with those problems, but it's completely feasible to avoid those problems if you want to, right? I mean, obviously, maybe you'll see something or hear something, but you can avoid it for sure if you wish to. And you know, coming to terms with that is just like don't get involved with the
Yeah.
wrong problems,
Yeah,
which
common
obviously
answer, common answer. Okay, so they're not going after
yeah,
tourists, they're not going after tourists,
yeah,
and, if you're not doing crazy shit, you'll be fine. Okay.
you'll be
Alright,
fine.
hit me with this casino story.
So I don't want to go too deep here because I honestly am a bit worried about like saying too much, right? I mean, obviously, I don't think it would be a problem, but it does get pretty specific with some things. But just being in the casinos here in Mazatlan, it is crazy because I'm not saying that anyone is in a specific line of work, but let's just say that it very much it would lend itself to believe that they're in specific lines of work. Some guys that like I'm a big poker player. I really enjoy playing poker. It's how I blow off steam a lot of the time, and or not necessarily blow off steam, but just like kick back, enjoy, and I like the strategy of it of playing player versus player versus like when you're playing blackjack or playing some roulette, something like that. I'm not a big fan of those slots, anything like that. But when you're playing poker here, it's very interesting because you can be playing with guys that poker here is like big. Like, there's a really big scene. There's a lot of different casinos, a lot of games going on any specific night. And they're also, you're able to play some pretty high stakes games here. Whereas like, you know, there's games that I've seen where the minimum is say 10,000 pesos just to enter, and most guys are playing with far more than that. And 10,000 pesos is like around $550 at this point, which
Uh-huh.
isn't like crazy, but if you're in Mexico, that is kind of wild. That's also one thing that you're illuminated to when you come to like a casino, is just like there's a massive, far more people that have a far more money than you think they do in Mexico. Like there's guys that are playing with the biggest one I've seen was I saw one hand of poker 2 weeks ago that was 11 million pesos, and that's I'm pretty sure
It's like
that's
half
around
a million
400.
dollars.
Yeah, 400, 500 grand
Yeah.
in one hand. And the guy who lost, he loses, and he was just completely stone faced, like was not like upset at all. And like that means that man had a ton of money, right? And so like there's guys like that. And when you're sitting at a poker table or when you're sitting at any sort of table, you're playing at any time with guys that look super corporate. So maybe they're like a federal judge or something, and you're also playing with guys that you're just a very you can tell certain things, right, by how they dress, how they talk, how they act, and yet you're playing with these people from all walks of life, probably playing with some, narcos, things like that. And you're probably playing with some guy who has some big business, and you're probably playing with, the federal prosecutor or something. But everyone comes to the poker table and everyone's respectful of everyone and playing like together, and not like there's no, everything is left at the door at the poker table here and at the casino in general. I don't know about the other games, but at least at the poker table. So it's a very interesting kind of like thing to watch play out because you're just sitting there watching like people that would be in no other place together, and now they're sitting in the same room playing a game against each other.
You know what the
So
average NPC would say? Be like, bro, if you take money off one of these guys, when you walk out the door, they're just gonna swoop you, bro.
yeah, dude, no
But
way.
they're not, right?
No, dude. I mean, it's like that's the wildest part is like, I've seen guys lose a ton of money. I've seen guys win a ton of money. I've taken big scores off of like in a hand, and people just smile and just like are happy for you. It's like it's always respectful, and there's very little like I've literally never seen an issue. The biggest issue I've ever seen is when someone's cards accidentally hit another guy when he folded, and like he was literally like saying sorry over and over, and the other guy forgave him right away. And so, everyone's super respectful, and I've never been worried at all. And even like some of these guys, which are like not getting too deep into specifics, but I've even gone out to the clubs and had some insane experiences at some points, going out with some certain people, and like um, everything is everything is paid for, everything is taken care of, and you're just having a good time, and people are just being nice, normal people to each other. That's what it is when you go out.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hey guys, quick interruption to tell you about Bitrefill. Bitrefill is the best way to convert your crypto into gift card balances. These are gift cards that you can spend at hotels.com, Airbnb, Nike, and many more. You may remember Joel Valenzuela, previous podcast guest. He's been living on crypto exclusively since 2015, and he's a big consumer of Bitrefill. And so I asked Joel, I said, what do you like most about Bitrefill? He said that he likes the instant delivery, the precise amount so that you don't have to juggle a lot of gift cards, and he loves the global selection. Nobody else has this much selection of gift cards, over 10,000 gift card options across hundreds of countries. Go to bitrefill.com to sign up, and you can also use the code MyLatinLife for 10% back off your first purchase. Go to bitrefill.com for more information. Yeah, I think anyone that's spent enough time in these narco areas, at least a lot of people I know, they've had these kind of stories where it's like, I met these guys that were like narcos, whatever, and then they were like,
Right.
hop in the Jeep, and then we hit the
Right.
club, and they were
Yeah.
splashing out, and
Right.
like we just like skipped the line and like all this shit. So
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
not
That's
not trying to glorify this shit, but it's funny it
yeah.
happens.
Yeah. I mean, it's and there's obviously like bad parts of everything, but I mean, the way I look at it is I'm not directly supporting. I'm not against anyone or anything. Obviously, I'm against like general evil in the world. But I would say that go and meet the whatever the some pharmaceutical company's CEO or head worker, and they're selling drugs that are killing tons of people too with painkillers, and it's just that it's an accepted evil that we're like, oh, this is okay though, or vaccines, whatever that is.
Yeah,
Um,
I'll
you
cut
know,
you there. You don't have to like
yeah,
you don't have to justify anything.
yeah,
Um, hmm. You got any other good stories? You got to let me. Come
yeah,
on, you've been there for a while.
yeah,
I know you got one or two.
yeah. In Mazatlan, as far as in that specific topic, I'm not too sure.
Or just
As
anything
far
like
as
yeah,
like,
just like hit
yeah,
me like this dude. I
yeah,
saw you like 6 months ago. Like what have
yeah.
been some of the notable moments lately?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, actually, one really fun time that we had together was going to that truck
The
festival,
rally. Yeah.
dude. I mean, like, so that was insane because you're just like walking around, and these people have absurd trucks, and they're coming from all over Mexico, kind of just to show off their trucks. It's a wild culture. One other thing that was really crazy was about a month ago. Then there was a hurricane in on Baja California. Me and another guy who was here, who's on in kind of the space, we went surfing on a hurricane waves, and literally we are like the only people out there. There's no other people out there, not even Mexicans, not even locals, and we're surfing these absolutely insanely massive waves, like 12 to 20 feet tall waves. And that was an insane day, and actually one of my favorite days ever in Mazatlan, because you know it was like it was beautiful. It was dangerous in some ways. Like I've almost drowned actually a few times while surfing because I'm not the greatest, but I enjoy it a lot. And so surfing a hurricane and hurricane swell or whatever it's called was definitely very notable. You're coming down these insane waves and just going super fast, and
Mm.
if you wipe out, you're gonna be going deep under the water. Um, so like
Are you getting
you're not
good?
even.
Like when I saw
Yeah,
you
yeah,
last, you were like you're definitely a lot better than me for sure. I'm
yeah,
friggin'
dude.
horrible. But are you like? Do you feel like you're finally now like in like a good spot where you could just like pull up to
Right.
like Hawaii or something and be like, "What's up?" and like get in the mix?
Dude, I think that I can drop in on like almost most size waves at this part. Like that's not like riding them isn't the hard part. Like as far as doing like whatever tricks and cuts and things like that, I'm still not really there. But I can ride like as far as just surfing and just riding waves, I can do that pretty confidently. One wild thing that happened when I was surfing like 2 months ago was I was surfing in this place by this day club called Onaki, and there's a ton of
Yeah.
sea urchins. And dude, I fell in and I literally had sea urchins. I still have sea urchins in my feet and hands and in my body
Ooh.
today. And I had to go. I had to get like sent to the hospital, and they're like using like knives and to cut sea urchins out of my hands and feet. And it was literally one of the most painful things ever. So that was definitely a wild part of it. Um, and I would say just in general, like it's an interesting thing when you go out to a nightclub and you're the only person there that's a gringo, right? That's a very interesting kind of experience every single time I do it still, because you're just kind of like an alien. And sometimes people will notice you a lot more than others, and I don't mind either way. If no one looks at me or if people are like looking at me like an alien, it's like both really interesting. But I think when you do that, you get to experience like things that you wouldn't experience if there's a lot of other gringos around, because a lot of times, especially in Mazatlan, people are wanting to like show you more of their culture. So like this girl is teaching me to dance banda, and we're listening. I'm in the car with these guys at 3 in the morning, going super fast, listening to corridos and like you know drinking Pacificos and all this kind of stuff. Showing me all the different clubs, all the different bars, all the local kind of spots that not that other people just aren't going to. And I think that's actually to make a note on that is whatever city you go to, go not outside of Playa. I think Playa has good spots, but not going to the tourist spots. Like some of my biggest regrets are in Medellin as far as like traveling goes. In Medellin, living in Provenza was actually like one of I really did not enjoy that. And if I did it again, I would 100% not live in Provenza. I'd live in a different part of the city,
Mhm.
maybe even like Bayo, just because when you're there, it's like, dude, I'm telling. Bayo is my favorite part of that part of the country. Like I know Medellin's great, but like Bayo and then the centro of Medellin is
It was like
amazing.
the hood for anyone wondering.
Dude, Bayo is the spot. The Bayo, I have a YouTube video in Bayo, and man, you should watch that because that's a really fun place. And like people are, it's super cultured, and people are like, I was there on a Saturday, and everyone's like dancing and in the town square. And it's like its own little town kind of. But also in Puerto Vallarta, like I lived there for 2 months, and going out to the first few weeks I was there, going out to the like tourist kind of places, like clubs. There's like two clubs right on the boardwalk right there, and man, those are like the worst. If you go there and you go to those, your experience is gonna be 10 times worse than if you go to like there's these other places. If you go down into the marina a bit more, I think it's called, that are just like 10 times better, but it's not for made for gringos. And so wherever you go, finding spots that aren't necessarily the typical gringo spots that are like the touristy spots, even if it's not for gringos but just for tourists, is something that I would highly
You know what I'm kind of
suggest.
noticing now is like you're like well on your way to being like a LATAM expert. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
you know how to do it now. You know how to avoid the gringo spots. You know how to make friends with
yeah,
people. You know how to think about good
right,
logistics and where you want to stay. And you're only
yeah.
21.
Yeah, man. I think logistics ahead of time is such an important thing. And that's why, like, for example, what I said earlier is like one of my things I do now before I go anywhere. And I'm never like someone who's like, I need to plan this day exactly, but having just lists of like before I go somewhere, like, hey, here's like 20 cool places or things I want to do. So that when I get there, like if I'm bored, I do that. Having an apartment in the right place is such an important thing. Like, if you have an apartment, like when I first moved to Playa, man, I was living like you want to live in Playa on between like first and 38th or first and 48th, but I was living in like 120th Street, like, way up north, and it was absolutely awful. Like, I mean, like, it took me an hour just to walk to where my gym was every single day because I was so deep. And so, like, the logistics as far as where you live is, I mean, I would live, like, I think we talked about this before once, but like, I would rather live in like a less quality place, but in a good like type of
Area.
area that I want to live, than live in the super nice place in the worst area. Like, and that's what
Yes,
literally happened to me in
exactly.
Playa.
And this is a huge pitfall that happens to people because they go on Airbnb and they get captivated by the photos.
Right.
But they should actually be focusing on the map more than the photos.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing, like, that's been one of the best parts of having a community of people that have been all around, is saying, like, hey, what's the kind of area that I should live in when I go to this place? For example, in Lima and Miraflores, is, I absolutely love Lima, Peru. Like, it's an amazing place. And if I wouldn't have lived in Miraflores, or there's another place called Barranco, if I wouldn't have lived there, my experience would have been a completely different kind of thing. But where I lived, I mean, I was able to walk everywhere. I had bars, I had gyms, I had restaurants, I had, spas, I had everything, yoga, anything right near me. And so, surfing too, everything right near me. And that completely made my experience amazing versus, for example, the first month I was living in Playa, I was still very like, I don't know if this is for me because of where I was living. Because it was just a hassle in Playa. The other thing was, at the time, was there's no like Uber, so it was like every single day trying to deal with taxi drivers scamming me or something. Um, you know, there's just like the logistics aspect of it is so important.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah, man.
What do you do? What do you think the future holds for you? Because you could
Yeah,
conceivably do this for a decade, and
right.
oh my god! But like, yeah, what do you think the future holds for you?
Yeah. So for me, um, what I kind of have prefaced this whole thing with was like, I want to live the most amazing life experience. And when I quit baseball, and I kind of had that ego death moment, I realized I had no clue what I actually love to do with my life. Like, because I've just done the same things over and over again. I think a lot of people are caught up in that, is where it's like they go through their life and they do the same exact stuff. They live in the same exact place just because that's what they've always done. They don't really actually think about, like, hey, is this really, they're just locked into a certain life, and they live that way, and that's that, and they just don't even think about it, right? They're not willing to step back and take an objective point of view. With that, when the reason that I'm actually still like checking out different places in Latin America, because just like when you don't know what you like to do, you need to try a lot of different things, I believe, and like try a lot of different hobbies, a lot of different actions, and see, what are some things I do enjoy. I think that you should try a lot of different places. And, so like for me, it's like I have cities, certain places where it's like, hey, I want to go check out living here. I want to go check out living here. I want to go check out living here, and kind of give 1 to 2 months. Obviously, it's not like the greatest. Like, I can't get a complete picture of every single place, but I can understand more, and then have more perspective. I think perspective is like the main thing as far as anything in life, is like, if you have perspective on like, hey, here's one thing I like about this place. Here's one thing I like about this place, So what are the things overall that I kind of like, and where is the best place for that? And I also don't think it's necessary to live in one spot for your entire life. Like, I don't think I'll ever be something where I'm living somewhere 12 months a year, or at least I hope not right now where I'm at. I'd like to be somewhere 4 or 5 months, 6 months, and then another place 6 months. And then maybe, going back to the other place for 6 months, just kind of keeping it fresh, keeping it new. I think it's important.
Hmm. What else is
Yeah.
on your radar?
Yeah, as far as places, so I have in Mazatlan. I'm actually here for like 2 more weeks, 3 more weeks, and then I'm gonna go to Mexico City for a bit. I didn't get to explore Mexico City as much as I want, but gonna explore that a little bit, and then leading up to Thanksgiving, which is like November 23rd or 24th. I have some spare time in there where I'm either gonna stay in Mexico City, or maybe go to uh, what's it called? not Costa Rica, the Dominican Republic or El Salvador. Those are kind of some places that I'm looking at as they're kind of easy trips. 2-3 weeks can make sense. And then I'm going to be home for Thanksgiving through Christmas. It's kind of like a promise I have with my mom. But then after that, I'm heading down to Argentina and going to Buenos Aires. And I'm going to be there for New Year's. And I haven't really figured out how it's going to look, but I know that I'm going to be going into the Patagonia Mountains, going to like Ushuaia. I think it's the Calete,
Califate,
Bariloche. Yeah, Califate. What's it called? Bariloche, something like that.
Bariloche.
Yeah, yeah. So going to be hitting all of those spots. And Argentina is a new country for me. But as far as like next year, there's definitely going to be a lot more like new countries that I'm going to be doing. Like I'm going to do
Huh.
Argentina, I'm going to do Chile, going to do Bolivia, going to do Brazil. Brazil's a big one. Argentina and Brazil, I feel like you could just stay like 3 years and you still wouldn't feel like you know anything about the countries, right?
So
Um,
basically, the world's your oyster.
Right. Yeah. Right now, especially, it's like there's still so many. As I've been in Latin America longer, I hear of so many different places, and I have lists of just like places cities that I'm like, okay, I need to go here and check this out for at least a month. I haven't been able to get into the place of like traveling for like 2 weeks or something out of time. That's
Yeah,
still not
don't do
something I can
that. Don't
do.
do that. 1 month
Yeah.
minimum.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
like the Patagonia stuff's a little is an exception, but in general, 1 month minimum.
Yeah. I think that's really important. So yeah, just kind of having that list so that I can have perspective on what I like. Like, do I really like living by the ocean or do I like living by the mountains? And do I like just living like in a landlocked place, just that's flat ground or something? I think that figuring that out for yourself and um, yeah, that's what I think is really important for anyone to do
Wow. Full
that comes to
location
Latin America.
independence.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and at the same time, trying to scale the business and do other things with it, and finding out like once you're in a place that you're comfortable financially, how do you get uncomfortable? How do you keep growing and keep like what is the reason that you keep growing? Because one thing I think that you know is actually a reason why someone wouldn't come to Latin America is if you can't be motivated unless you have some surroundings that are completely motivating you, like people, then it's probably not a good place for you as far as like going to cities that are not digital nomad hubs or not like Miami or something. Because um, if you're here, you're going to be around like in Mazatlan. It's a very relaxed, slow kind of lifestyle. People aren't like it's not super intense, right? There's not You're not going to be
You don't think
networking
so?
with. I
Like,
don't think so.
do you think it's possible to live in Mazatlan and avoid all the degen stuff?
Well, oh, definitely, yeah, dude. I mean, I have even my buddy that I was just here. I mean, he never drank, he never went out once. It's completely possible, and you can completely like live a focused work lifestyle. But what I'm meaning with that is it's not intense as far as like you're not around other dudes every single day that are making whatever hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, right? And so the place that I find Latin America isn't like good for someone is if they need to be around that in order for themselves to keep pushing. Like for me, it's been a complete learning experience of like rather than just pushing for the sake of pushing. And this is what I really wanted is I didn't want to just work and make more money just for the sake of making more money. It's like now that I have a comfortable life, like I can live a comfortable lifestyle. I can buy anything, buy things that I want here, and do what I want to here. What's the reason on a more internal level? And what's the purpose for me to work harder at the business outside of just money? Because when you're in Latin America, like we said, it's way cheaper. It's a whole different like you don't have to spend 10 grand a month, 20 grand a month to live in really cool lifestyle like you would in like New York City or Miami or something like that. You can spend way less and live really well. So you have to find your purpose, I think, a lot higher level.
Hmm. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah, man. Yeah,
So no chica sinaloense has stolen your heart or holding you back?
dude. That's actually been another thing that I've had to like had to learn a lot about, and it's been a really good thing to learn a lot about, is like relationships. When you are not sure where you're going to be in 3 months, it's really, it changes how you do relationships in general. And so, for me, right now, obviously, like there's girls that I like, and there's, I hang out with specific girls a lot of the times, but I think that I feel this sense of, especially at my age, that I know what I want and what I don't want. And at this point in my life, like, I'm not interested in getting married, settling down just yet. And because I feel like a lot of young guys, they just kind of go in that experience where they go to high school, they go to college, they get married, they have a job, and that's kind of, that's all she wrote. um, and that's not bad per se. But I feel like for me, I have some, and I don't know if a lot of people feel
You
this,
got
but
time.
yeah, I have time, but I also feel like I have some insane mission that's going to come to me really soon in my life. Like, I feel purposeful right now, but I feel like there's some insane mission that I have. Like, I know that we both follow this guy that's biking across Africa right now, and so I
Oh, you
feel
saw
like,
that on Instagram?
dude, it's
Just
funny
like
because
some random guy.
yeah,
Yeah.
dude, I had liked that post, and then I was on my reels, and I noticed you had commented, and it was like 20 minutes after I had liked it. I was like, yo, what the heck? And so, um, basically, like, I see something like that, and I'm like, man, I know that something like that is going to come to me. And I feel like if I am, at least right now, if I'm in some super deep relationship, and I feel like a lot of people, they miss out on whatever their really deep purposeful mission might be, because of, something else. So, like, and it might be a fear based in just, like, something internal. But for me, I feel a fear of having a really kind of having that relationship where it's going to be a marriage and going to be kids. And I fear that I'm going to miss something that's really big in my life, and miss the acceptance of an opportunity that I would
Yeah,
take
yeah.
if I was,
Yeah.
solo.
Dude, you're 21. You have so much
Yeah.
time. I mean,
Yeah, man.
like, because a lot of the digital nomads, they get into it later, like 28, 30, 33, and then they're
Yeah.
35 and they still don't have kids. But,
Yeah.
um, you got tons of time. You got tons of time.
Yeah. And I think that's a big thing for young guys too, and in general, like me. Obviously, I'm not some great authority on anything, but a lot of the guys that come down to Latin America just to live, like, straight away, they're, maybe they're divorced. I feel like that's the case a lot of the time. But for a younger guy, it's like, why would you choose here specifically? Why would you choose to come to Latin America? And I think that if you're someone that's really interested in, just doing that alternative lifestyle, and you have a lot of energy, then, I mean, this is a great place to come to spend it. And, the experience of, like, when you're taking advice as a young guy on Latin America, just be very careful about who you take your advice from, because what
Mm,
someone wants versus what another guy wants, what the 35 or 40-year-old divorced guy wants versus what you want, when he's giving you advice, it's way different from what you need. And I've fallen in that trap where it's like, you know, and especially with my values of, like, what I enjoy and what I like, you got to be taking advice from the right people, and also, like, have the right sources of, what's interesting to you, what you like. So that's important.
hmm hmm
Yeah.
What do you think's holding people back from kind of replicating what you've accomplished so far?
So, as far as business goes, or as far as, do you mean more as far as, like,
Yeah, taking the
moving around and
plunge. Obviously, you
yeah,
have to make money online somehow, and
right.
take the plunge and mentally commit.
Yeah. I think
Hey everybody, hey everybody. Quick break from the podcast to tell you about Language Blend, the best new way to learn Spanish. Language Blend was co-founded by Jake Nomada, friend of the podcast, decade of experience in Latin America, and Jake and his team, they put everything into this program that they wish they had in terms of how to level up quickly with your Spanish language skills. Because the faster that you can get conversationally fluent in Spanish, the better the experience that you're going to have in Latin America. So go to languageblend.com for more information.
I think that a lot of people, um, it's, and I've even seen this with me. It's like it's better for a lot of people not to have to go and risk and live the lifestyle where they're not really sure what's where they're gonna be at in a year. And it's just kind of maybe biological, or maybe just something with that, where people want security. And if you're someone that is just you, being comfortable is okay. Like if someone is happy, and sometimes I wish and like envy to be someone where I can just like go and work the job, and then when I'm finished with my job, just be finished with it, not look at it anymore, and then you know be in the same location and do the same things every single day, and then turn on the TV, and then I'm done for the day. Right? I kind of envy that sometimes, because if someone is happy like that, that's you know that's good for them, and they're not meant to go and like try to live in Latin America and try to like be super, try to build a business where they're not really sure how, what's going on, and they're not sure, what they're doing. So I think that it's not even necessarily holding back. If someone is trying, obviously things holding people back are just like, um, it's just action, taking action. But if someone's not trying to do it, I don't think it's for everyone. I think that's a really big thing. Is um,
Why is
you
it
know,
not for everyone though? Like, shouldn't
yeah,
everyone live outside their country for a little bit of
yeah.
time just to get that outside looking in perspective and just like live different experiences?
I think in an ideal world, obviously, like everyone having a large perspective is a great thing, and you know being able to see different cultures, experience different cultures. But I think that you know it's well, maybe it's a good thing. I just don't think everyone's meant for it, right? I don't know how to phrase it exactly how I want to phrase it, right? But I just think that like someone is who's just going to go to, someone can go to Mexico, to Playa del Carmen or to Mazatlan, and just sit in their apartment all day. And I've seen this. I've seen a guy do this where he just pretty much sits in his apartment all day and then just like does nothing else, goes to the club on the weekend, and you never learn a sentence of Spanish or something like that. And it's like, well, just because you go live somewhere doesn't really mean that you're engaging a new perspective, right? And so someone has to be ready in order to adopt a new perspective. They have to be ready to adopt that perspective. And I think every time, at some point in everyone's life, maybe they do have that, but not everyone kind of acts on that exploration, curiosity, right? And I mean, for anyone to be successful, I think that the one of the first things of it is just having a really deep curiosity. And so for me, it was like I was curious about this alternative lifestyle of having a business, and then I was also, with that curiosity, I'm also curious about like living in an alternative lifestyle about where I'm living. And so I couldn't manufacture that curiosity, and I don't know how someone could,
Hmm.
but
I
it
agree with
was
that.
in me. And so I used that curiosity. And then when I'm here, I'm curious about, hey, what's this place like that not that many people go, or what's this place like? So I think a lot of it's just bakes out to having a curiosity and actually acting on it. And so
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, no, it
I'm
makes
just
sense.
lucky. Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, and what's crazy is, I guess at 21, did a lot of your buddies just graduate this past May, June, or are they graduating next May, June?
Yeah. They're all graduating next May, June, actually, for the most part, like everyone that I went to high school with, at least. So it's definitely funny, like when I go home now, and just relationships in general. Like I still have a few really deep friends, but I think I one of the best skills I've learned in Latin America is making friends with all different types of people, and being able to make friends outside of just who's in my fraternity, who's in my job, who's in my college. That's one of the best skills I've learned, because most people, their wife, their girlfriend, their buddies are all just people that they became friends with out of their being close proximity and environment. And so It's weird now because when I go home, I have this skill of, and not even necessarily skill, just this way of like I can make friends with new people, and so um, it's like I don't think I'm not in a better position than anyone else. I think everyone's in, if someone's happy with where their life is, that's great for them and they should be happy there. But with my friends that I went to high school with, things like that, we're just in very different kind of circumstances now where there is some disconnect with a lot of the people that I used to be like buddies with every single weekend.
Have you had any funny situations when you go back for Thanksgiving or Christmas or whatever it is, and you hang out with the same guys, and uh, like maybe a specific situation? This is something that happens to every digital nomad.
Yeah. Yeah. I think one thing that's funny is like when I first got started growing an online business in general, um, a lot of your friends like they thought I was like a scammer just because like they're like, okay, like how are you doing this, and so I think that that's something that definitely I dealt with. Is like one of my buddies like, oh, like how's the scamming going? I'm like, well, that's not really what's going on. And so
So
it's
condescending, my God.
right. Yeah. Well, also like when you go home, if you're building like some type of online business, seems like a lot of time your family would be like, "Oh, how's that? How's your?" And maybe your aunt or uncle is like, "How's your little business going?" Right, or something like that.
the
And
little, the little.
yeah, how's your little internet thing going? And you know, once you become very like, I don't want to say secure, but once you become like confident in yourself and in your situation, those remarks just go so like you just like kind of like laugh them off, but at first they kind of can mess with you. And so I think over time, becoming more confident in what I have and the value that we drive for people has definitely like when someone says, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah. You know, I don't even feel the need to tell you that I made your yearly salary last month, but like, like I'm just confident in that what I have and what we do. And also, where I live, it's like, oh, isn't that so dangerous? And it's like, no, actually, I feel safer here than I feel safer there than I do here a lot of times when I'm walking alone at night or something. Um,
Mhm.
and so it's just very outside of that. I would say that one kind of specific odd situation now is when you do go home, um, when people kind of ask you like just maybe old friends, they're very a lot more like there's just the disconnect of you're just living so different. You're living in such a different place, living such a different lifestyle that it's like making conversation like you would used to, like, hey, how's the sports team doing or something, is very weird, kind of situation, because it's just like,
But you learn the
you're
skill. You learn the gift of
yeah,
the gab.
yeah, definitely. But I think that with that comes like people that you have a prior relationship with, that you're really kind of deep
It's that
relationship
you've
with in the
changed and they
past,
can kind of tell that you've changed, or
right?
they treat you like
Yeah.
you're the person you used to be.
Right. That's one thing that I really actually, that's one of my least favorite parts about going home is, you know, the best part about moving anywhere outside of your hometown is that you can recreate yourself. And I absolutely love that. It's like if you don't know anyone in a certain town, like you could go next month to Mazatlan and decide you're like a pump rock hipster or something, even after being like some corporate dude, and no one would like say anything, right? But if you do that around people that already have a prior conception of you, they're gonna be like, what the heck is going on? And they're still gonna treat you like your old self. So like when I go home, I've like if you're not confident in yourself, you fall back into like these old prior conceptions that people have of you, right? It's like when you go back home to your parents or something, maybe you fall back into this childlike kind of state. And
Mhm.
so overcoming that, and with friends, it's like overcoming the prior conceptions they have of you is definitely a hard disconnect there, and also of what you have of them, right? Because you have prior conceptions of other people, and
Right.
you
Yeah, I
know
guess it works both ways.
yeah, it works both ways for sure. I mean, like, I think that it's really important to know. It's like I really hate the idea of like, oh, I'm living better than you, I'm living a better lifestyle than you, or I'm living cooler than you, and I hate anyone, like I don't like when people do that
Yeah,
at
it's not a
all.
good frame. It's better to
No.
just be like, yeah, it's different. Both are cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, just sharing what you do and sharing your experience, and being open. And I think that you can kind of tell when you're talking to someone who the people that are actually interested in it are. Like you can tell, like I have some friends where I know that they're just like, they really want to do this. And I'm like, man, like, you just have to like accept that, you can just buy a plane ticket. Like when someone's asking me like all these questions about traveling, they're like, hey, what do I do here? What do I do here? What do I do this? I'm like, hey man, the first step is just buying a plane ticket, like buy a one-way ticket somewhere and then figure it out, because you're gonna go just with business, like with business, you're gonna overanalyze so much. You just need to take that first action, and go down and do it. With anything, it's like just take the action.
Has anyone made a genuine effort and been like, you know what? Fuck Ohio State. I really want to do this. I want to live this life. I want to tear it up in Peru and go surfing every day.
Right, dude. I wish. I mean, it's hard, right? I mean, like you realize how much of a sub niche making money online is still. Once you kind of are around people that don't. And so people, I've had friends that have come down and visited me. And a lot of my friends, I've also made a lot of friends that are already, like maybe making money online since then. Like Twitter has been one of the craziest things that I've ever had access to. I mean, I've met tons of people from there, but
That's how we met.
um, yeah, yeah, exactly. I mean, that's how I've met a lot of really close friends now. But as far as people from back from Ohio, I mean, it's a matter of there, you know, it's hard for someone to make such a massive shift in their lifestyle, and unless they really have it in them. And when you're in college especially, it's not something where it's like you can just decide to make money online, then you're making money online, right? It's like you have to have some idea. I have been able to get my brother's been able to come down a few times, and like he's going to Playa for a little bit
Oh,
over time
cool.
because he works
Is he older
remotely.
or
But
younger?
he's older, he's 26.
Okay.
So
He must
yeah,
be
I mean,
jealous as hell.
somewhat, but I think that also he just is a part of a different kind of style, and it's like that's where I really learned that perspective of like, hey, this isn't for everyone necessarily all the time. It's like if someone is happy in their lifestyle, then what's there to change? It's like if they're happy, if someone's happy living in you know Alabama, then just let them live in Alabama, and that's good for them, right?
You
But
know
if
what though?
they're
I'm honestly a little bit more militant about it, where I really think
yeah,
location independence is
yeah,
really a necessity. And
yeah,
I think it's really mandatory to have at least online income streams. If you want to keep living in Ohio because,
yeah,
you like being around your childhood friends and this and that, that's
right,
cool, but you should have the option to move if you want to. You should be able.
right,
Ohio is snow too. It's not fun in the winter. Like you should have
yeah,
that option to be able to spend maybe January to March in
right,
Mazatlan or somewhere abroad, in those kind of depressing months at very least.
right.
Or at least just like let's just say like some crazy stuff happened or you lost your job. At least you have like a little online
Yeah.
money coming in. Um, I
Well,
I really think it is becoming a necessity.
yeah. I mean, yeah. I think that having freedom is like, for me at least, and I
Freedom is a
think
necessity.
freedom is a necessity if, and I would think the reason I like say all of this kind of stuff about like not everyone needs to live that is because I don't want to impose a lifestyle on anyone. When I look at what I'm like, when I
Mhm.
see what a logical person would want, I'm like, yeah, of course. Like, why wouldn't they want freedom? And I don't really understand why people would want to not have freedom to be able to do that. But I agree with you there for sure that people should want freedom, right, in all
Right,
logical situations,
right.
right? But sometimes people have consumed so much information and are just in such a place where they don't have really control over their lifestyle, or they're not willing to take control over their life.
Like, yeah,
That
dude, if
yeah,
Ben's brother's listening to this, man, I'm sure he is. I hope he does to support his bro. Dude, make some money online, bro. Because
yeah,
I have brothers too, right? And I just wish we had that ability to
yeah,
basically like squat up together. And actually, you
right,
met my brother, one of my brothers.
yeah, yeah,
Um, I'm doxing too much, but and like just to be able to like have like a winter mansion somewhere, and then we can come go down to the winter mansion. We can go back home, and
Right.
to you know what I mean, and kind of have that both have that flexibility because it's weird when only one brother has the flexibility and then one brother's stuck.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. I mean, like, it's still hard for everyone to find what their kind of value is of what they're going like to put online. Like, what's the value that you can give out to people? And so I think that, um, one thing I would mention is, if you're like someone who doesn't have anything online yet, it's very, I don't know if I would, I know I see people suggest like, hey, go to save up a few $1,000, then go to Colombia and just build something online. And I'm like, man, that's putting yourself into a situation right there. But maybe it's good, but I would suggest like, hey, build something a little bit more online first, maybe even just get a job online, right? And like figure what that out could look
Hmm.
like is,
Hmm.
and then move down. I'm more of one from that, because if you really want to move down, then
Hmm.
you're gonna figure it out.
Yeah, we call it monkey branching. And so
Yeah,
it's like there's two approaches. There's like the burn the boats approach, and then there's
yeah,
the monkey branching approach. And what monkey branching is like picture Tarzan in the jungle, and you don't let go of the previous branch until you have a firm grasp on the next
right,
branch in front of you, right?
right,
And there's
definitely.
no reason, like people in America have so much free time. Like there's no
Mm,
reason on evenings and weekends if you put, let's just say, 10 hours of focused effort into something every week, there's no reason you wouldn't be in a really good spot even 3 months from now. Because three
yeah,
months 3 months is 12 weeks, 10 hours a week. That's over well over 100 hours. Like there's no reason you couldn't be in a pretty good monkey branch spot with over 100
right.
hours over like a decent, reasonable time frame.
Yeah, I think that a lot of people, the reason they don't want that freedom or don't really have that goal of like pushing for that is probably because, and I saw a tweet on this recently. It's like their dopamine system is messed up, or they're super inflamed, or something like that, and they're just consumers of like, hey, they work and then they go and they consume stuff. They consume videos, they consume TV, they consume sports, they consume stuff, they consume alcohol, they consume nicotine, whatever. And I'm not hating on all of those, but what I'm saying is your mind takes a lot of a different kind of approach to what you want when genuine accomplishment is like you actually want that for yourself again. Because the problem is when you're constantly overloading yourself with consumption, then the things that you actually want, like freedom, don't become nearly as important because your kind of base needs and your like dopamine, whatever the word is, are already met. And so I
Hmm.
think that, for a young guy like myself, in order to have that success, one of the big parts for me was like not letting myself live a comfortable lifestyle like other people, where I'm letting myself drink every weekend and go out all the time and eat crap food and watch YouTube and watch movies all the time. I had to really like shift that, because when I let myself do all of that, then I don't really see a like I'm just my lizard brain's like, why would we do anything else? Like, why would we go? Why would we be ambitious? Why would we want freedom? We already have just everything we need. We have the food right here. We have we have the sleep. We have the bed. We have the roof over our head. So
Yeah.
you have to be very, like, for me at least, I had to be very militant about limiting, what's coming in, and not stop
Hmm.
being such a consumer. I had to be
Yeah.
very militant
Yeah,
about
you
that.
got to want it. You definitely got to want it. And hopefully podcasts like this, people are listening, and hopefully it's helping to inspire people. And honestly, I think people are really going to enjoy this episode, Ben.
Yeah,
I think people are going to say like, "Wow, this is one of the best episodes I've heard recently." Because we haven't had
hopefully.
too many like younger guys. I'm trying to think who else is like in their early 20s like you. So it's
Yeah,
really good to get that perspective.
definitely, man. Definitely, yeah. And I really enjoy being on and talking and chatting with you. And hopefully we'll be able to catch up soon in person. 2024, man.
Yeah, man, I'll be around. I'll be in, I'll be in Mexico for the most part.
Yeah, maybe we do that Antarctica late 2024. Come on.
Oh shit, Antarctica, that'd be cool. Or even, dude, let me know what you're saying for Dia de los Muertos this year.
Yeah, for sure. I'll definitely be back up in Mexico at some point, and there's going to be a ton of adventures, and hopefully, um, that's actually the only thing I would say is like I am gonna be posting a lot on YouTube of like different adventures in different places, so that could be something cool to follow in potentially. I don't know, of like every kind of place I'll go, I'll be probably in like, 6, 7 different countries in the coming year. So, there could be some cool stuff on there maybe.
Good, good. We'll definitely be linking your YouTube channel in the show notes, and
Yeah.
I'll make a soft 80% commitment to 2024 Antarctica right now. I'm pretty down. I just need a squad. Like I'll do it anytime,
Right.
basically. I just need a squad, so
Yeah.
I'm pretty down.
Dude. Yeah, I think November is the time to go. So, I would be in on it for sure. I know it's pricey, but I mean,
November
if you,
2024? I mean, you got to do it once. You got to do it once.
yeah,
Who
dude. I mean,
cares?
yeah, you exactly. You can't. These are the once in a lifetime experiences. How many people go to Antarctica, and it's like if you're interested in going to Antarctica, this is like kind of just like not to keep going with it, but if you're interested in going to Antarctica, it's like you can go to Antarctica. Like people don't even think about the fact that they could go to Antarctica if they wanted to. So like just go. If you
Yeah,
have them, if you
go.
make the money, you can go. And so
Yeah, in my mind, the
definitely,
big three, the South America big three
yeah,
are Antarctica,
yeah,
Easter Island, and
definitely.
Galapagos.
Yeah, yeah, and I think for me also, I would put Venezuela in there, just like actually exploring
I,
the
I,
country of
I was
Venezuela
thinking
in general. Yeah,
Roraima Mountain on the border of
yeah,
Venezuela, Brazil. That's just hard to get
yeah,
to, but
yeah,
but the other ones they're like kind of like. But the thing about Galapagos, Easter Island, and Antarctica is they're both kind of like they're islands, right? Or they're like over the
right,
water. So it's not just like
right,
obviously there's like unlimited sick things on the
yeah,
continental landmass, but these other trips are like you really need a concerted effort and they're not cheap and you need a
yeah,
squad, I feel. But I'm down. I'm
definitely,
down. I'm down for all of it, bro. I'm down.
definitely. No, dude, for sure. I mean, it's you got to be intentional about those kind of things for sure. So, I mean, let's do it.
November 2024 or are you going this you're not
Yeah.
going this November.
No, dude, heck no. Heck, I was actually thinking about it earlier this year, but I'm still like in a place with work where it's like there is that monkey branch of with the business. I'm still involved a lot day to day, so I do have to work and like going on a 15-week trip of Antarctica where I
15
I can't
week
15 day
15 day. Yeah, dude. I think it's 2 weeks. Dude, I can take
it's two
two.
weeks.
I can take 2 weeks off.
Yeah, I mean it's just like that's kind of the one of the things that I'm looking towards where it's like, okay, with the business, the next step is make it so that I can exit, this company or put in charge a CEO full time and kind of like work on something new that is really even more out of passion and be able to do that 2 week Antarctica trip. So that's
Then
really
maybe
one
even
of
by
the
next year the Starlink will be advanced enough. It might even work.
right.
That'd be
Well,
cool.
dude, I would say like on something like that though, it's like, do you want to work while you're on that? There's some things where it's weird when you work online where it's like you never stop working, but there's some trips where it's like, hey,
I
I'm
mean,
not
I
going to
feel like
work
there's a
for
lot
two
of
weeks.
downtime. I know what you're
Right.
saying. I know what you're saying. Like
Yeah.
maybe if you're like in other situations, but I feel like in Antarctica there might be a lot of downtime.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's weird. It's weird. Like vacations end once you start working online fully. If you have like your own business online, it's like there's not really much. You can be on technically a vacation kind of spot for forever, but are you ever really on vacation? I'm not, at least. I'm always like even kind of could have my phone on and work at any time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The Jers dude on Twitter had a line. It was like, "I'm on permanent vacation, but I'll never retire,"
Right.
which
Yeah.
I liked. Which I liked.
Yeah.
Cool, man.
Definitely.
Well, let's take this time for you to do a little call to action for the audience. Let them know about the YouTube,
Yeah.
maybe elevate the marketing agency, and wherever you want to direct people's attention.
Yeah. So the YouTube channel is just Real Ben Moore. And, I keep the videos very organic and like not edited at all. So sometimes they can be a bit drony and boring, but, I just try to show my raw experience of what's going on. And it's more for like anyone that's interested in that, and also just for myself to document like cool things that I've done. Like I have ones where I flew in a like a motorized vehicle above Lima, Peru. I have one where I flew over Colombia. I saw donkeys in Colombia. There's things, a lot of different things on there. Jet skiing in Mexico. So check that out, and then Elevate. It's a good offer if you're someone who is what we call like a value-based creator. So we work with a lot of doctors and a lot of like psychologists, authors, CEOs, that kind of thing. And if you have if you want to be growing on socials in some type of way and building a large influence for yourself, but you don't want to have to spend hours and hours a month on it, we kind of limit it to just one call a month, and that's all you're going to ever have to do for social media. Again, we help you create all the content there, and then we take care of everything else on social media and have helped drive north of 1 billion views at this point for people, so across all the different platforms. So you can check that out in my Twitter, which is also just Real Ben Moore, and then I think there's an X at the end. But other than that, I would say feel free to DM me, or also you can DM My Latin Life or follow My Latin Life's content if you're interested in actually making this transition.
Oh, why? Thank you. You shouldn't have. No, I love that Ben really didn't come on here to promote his stuff. He just came on to just chill, catch up, and
Yeah,
inspire people with the story, which I very much appreciate. I'll link your Twitter,
definitely.
and that'll probably be the best way for guys to DM you there. So thanks for doing this again, Ben. Really fun to catch up, and looking
Yes,
forward
sir.
to hanging out with you in person soon.
See you, man. Thank you. Talk soon.
This has been another episode of the My Latin Life podcast. Again, my guest today, Ben Moore. Cheers, everyone. Thanks for listening.